There are very few films that came out last year that hit me as hard as Aftersun did 2 nights ago. I had heard great things about this film, but hadn't made it a priority on my watch list. I knew with the award buzz it was getting that eventually I'd need to sit down and watch it, but just kept pushing it off. With the number of films there are, it's become easier and easier to let small indie flicks like this fall by the wayside. To consistently put it off and tell yourself, yeah, I'll watch that at some point, but I'm here today to tell you if you haven't watched Aftersun, don't wait. Aftersun is, on the surface, a simple story. It's taking a look back at a father and daughter vacation to a resort in Turkey. Frankie Corio plays Sophie, a 12-year-old child of divorce who's in the process of growing up. That point in everyone's lives when they're no longer a little kid, but not really a young adult quite yet. Paul Mescal plays Callum, Sophie's dad, who doesn't really get to see her that often. He's amicably separated from Sophie's mother and is turning 30 on this little trip of theirs. Callum had Sophie clearly at a very young age, so you see him throughout the film struggle with his identity. He's a young guy trying to figure out his way in the world, but at the same time, he's responsible for another human being. The twist with the film is that you're experiencing these moments as memories from an adult version of Sophie. That's not a crazy spoiler or anything, you sort of realize it early into the movie. So you're seeing these scenes play out in part via old videotapes that the two took while on the trip long ago. All the while diving deeper into what Sophie is taking away from the trip as an adult, thinking and perceiving things that she couldn't as a child about her dad. This movie emotionally wrecked me and is the only film released in 2022 that actually brought me to tears. You see the struggles that both of our leads encounter while on this vacation, but it's not feeding you the answers because you're sort of seeing things how Sophie is seeing them now. You have to try to connect some dots about Callum and his emotional state at the time from the perspective of one of the main characters who isn't actively in that moment anymore. This movie says a lot about these moments that we carry with us from childhood, what's forgotten in time, and just how upsetting and even troubling it can be to not have all the answers. For the first hour of the film, you're watching it like, okay, it's a father and daughter on a vacation, maybe they butt heads a little bit, but what's the big deal? But this film takes a turn about midway through where you return back to these moments you've already experienced, but this time you have much more context into specifically Callum's mental state. And I just gotta say, the way this movie was structured floored me. It put me in the position of Sophie and had me rethinking what I had just seen and even reshaped how I saw some characters without vilifying them. I have to sing the praises of Charlotte Wells, who wrote and directed this movie, and it's her first film, which I found to be unbelievable watching this. What a debut. Everything between the script, the steady hand on the camera that just lingers on these shots to make you feel the moment and to help bring forth plot elements and themes, the shot composition, everything that she had to do here, she did splendidly. I don't think I'm overhyping it whenever I say that this is one of the best directed movies of the year. How she managed to orchestrate this thing and bring across so many themes that were clear to the audience baffles me. I don't know how someone did this in their first film. I think that Charlotte Wells is a name that we can expect to keep hearing more of in the future. The film is gorgeous as well. Even in spots where seemingly nothing is going on, you can't help but appreciate how this film was shot. They're in this beautiful landscape of Turkey, and yeah, you get some great shots of the ocean, the sun setting, but I'm talking about just even the shots where it's Callum and Sophie sitting at a table. Everything in this film looks stunning. Frank Corio and Paul Mescal are both outstanding. I think after this performance, Paul Mescal is going to be a big star. I really do. He had a lot he had to get across with playing Callum, and he performed flawlessly, in my opinion. Both of these actors owned their roles and had such incredible chemistry throughout the film. That relationship was so important, and both actors are truly triumphant in this. Now, I want to dive a little deeper into the ending of the film and kind of what I got from it, so if you haven't watched Aftersun yet, don't keep watching this video. Click off, subscribe, obviously, but go watch Aftersun and then come back. Whatever you gotta do, just watch Aftersun. All right, so my thoughts on the ending of this film. It absolutely floored me. It was the most emotionally resonant, touching, cutting endings of any film that I saw in 2022, and I really mean that. The way Charlotte Wells interlaced the scenes of Callum dancing on the dance floor with the adult version of Sophie trying to find him, and for their encounter to be edited together with the scene of the two dancing on the vacation, that's just masterful. It's a scene that deserves to be rewatched over and over and over. It is a masterclass in using music, ongoing themes, and editing to bring about an emotional response in your viewer at the very end of the film. I found myself so moved by how the scene played out and the choreography of the scene whenever Sophie pushes Callum in the club, and whenever he's falling, he sees the child version of Sophie, is heartbreaking. And then for Callum to turn around after he drops Sophie off at the airport and walk straight into the rave, brilliant. That completely changed the way that I looked at the rave scenes whenever I was reflecting on the film. To me, that showed that Callum felt like he lived in a sort of trance when he didn't have Sophie around. Like he was just sort of existing in a haze. But then unfortunately, that haze would find its way into whenever he would hang out with Sophie, and it would cause this inescapable feeling for Callum and made him a really tragic character. Paul Mescal is also remarkable in that scene. Whenever the camera turns to him, he looks like he just saw a ghost, or he's just a shell of a man whenever Sophie walks through the doors of the airport. Whenever he closes the camera and turns around, man, this dude is going to be a superstar. And it sort of shows me that Sophie now understands her dad a little bit better. So my interpretation of the movie as a whole is that we are experiencing it through adult Sophie's point of view, like I said before. So those scenes whenever we get Callum alone, to me, I could be wrong, but to me, it's Sophie's interpretation of what her dad may have been going through now that she is reviewing the tapes and is seeing everything a little bit clearer as an adult. And it's crushing to think of her feeling that her dad was in that sort of a headspace now that she can sort of emotionally resonate with him as an adult. It also makes the film more tragic in the thought of why Sophie might be looking back on the recordings of this vacation, that something might have actually happened to Callum, and this is her looking for the signs that something was there potentially, trying to gain a better understanding of her dad. And I could be wrong, but that's sort of the direction that I saw the movie going toward. And that's all I really had to say. I just couldn't make a video about this movie without at least mentioning the ending. So those are my thoughts on Aftersun. This wasn't really meant to be a full-on review. I just haven't been able to get this film out of my mind the last couple days, so I just had to get the camera out and start recording. But thank you so much for watching the video up to this point. Hopefully, if you're still watching, you've already seen Aftersun. So if you enjoyed it, let me know down in the comments. If you didn't, maybe if you interpreted something else, let me know in the comments as well. Be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this content, and I'll see you guys next time.